So a little bit about me for the first part is how I got into construction from a really young age, obviously. I didn't realize at the age of 5 that it was something that was going to be of interest. Just like most parents, they're going to try to get you to help them out around the house and do things. But I was loving the hammer, I loved doing decks. My summer jobs were very much related to construction. I fell off a roof trying to pull tiles off when I was doing roofing with my dad, but clearly I'm okay, But it was really interesting to realize that finally when I found my niche, which is HR, I ended up going back to something that I grew up in, which was construction with my dad. And he sort of introduced me to this field and something that I realize I connect with. I'm not a suit person. I swear I'm not a typical HR person. A lot of people would say maybe I'm a black sheep of the family, but we're not even allowed to say that anymore because that's not allowed in school, So I'm a different kind of HR person. But to let you know is I do have about 24 years of experience in HR. So I have worked in different global companies. I had the privilege of working for Disney Cruise Line, and I lived on their island in Bahamas. I also worked for Celebrity Cruise Line and lived in their island in Bahamas. And then I've lived in Greece, I've lived in France, etc. And I've done HR this whole time. So I've done it internationally and also back in Canada. So what I like to say is when I came back to land, I had to learn all the new ESA laws and all these types of things related to what we do here back in Canada, but specifically Ottawa. Now I do have clients outside of Ottawa as well. I have some also in the US. And I have to say, Canada is hard sometimes to find employees, and it's also harder to get rid of them. I'm flying to the US tomorrow morning to go do a harassment investigation, but I know chances are that this person's going to be terminated, but it's really easy to terminate in the US. It's all at will state. You don't like someone one morning, you can say, hey, see you later. Here, we have to have our ducks in a line. You have to have employment agreements, you have to have new hire packages, onboarding documents, etc. What I have learned though from being and working with a lot of companies through OCA is a lot of small companies don't have their ducks aligned. We've had mom and pop shops that started from maybe 10, 15 employees. Now you've grown to 50 to 75, but that growth also comes risk. So these are the things that we want to talk about today. So our agenda is we're going to look at trends, what we've had in the past HR, what you can do as an employer, but also what's important is what's in it for your employees. And there's going to be a general theme that goes out throughout the session today, so I invite you to try to pay attention to what that theme will be. So trends. Did anyone attend my session last year from OCA? A few of you. Okay. So this is something that we looked at last year. So a business recap was 35% of overall companies were just hoping to get through the year. After the pandemic, it was like, holy shit, what happened? Now I just need to coast so that I can find my bearings again, right? 65% though of companies wanted to grow, but only by 5%. 5% seems a lot for a small company, but for some large companies, it's not a lot. So I give you this example. If you're a $2 million company, 5% growth is $100K. If you terminate 2 people, it's going to wipe out your $100K right then and there because you're going to pay them severance. You're going to maybe have to pay a lawyer. Then they're going to sue, so you're going to have to pay a lawyer even more. And lawyer fees used to be $350 an hour. Now they're $500 to $750 an hour. So you have to account for that when you're thinking about your employees. So it's great that you have a growth plan, and I'm happy that you do, but your growth plan can be wiped out very easily if you don't manage your employees properly. So a lot of times when people think HR, I don't make money. My department doesn't make you money. And I get it. It's hard for me to sell my services to you. It's hard for you to see a value in hiring me to help you be proactive. I totally get it. I've been doing it for a long time. But when I'm trying to show you the other side, when you're not proactive and when you don't do things ahead of time and have proper paperwork, employment agreements, onboarding programs, then you just lose your 100K that you made the year before. And it wipes out very, very easily. Now, on your common year plan, or however it is that you're going to make your budget, it comes up in a different way. You think of the HR budget as totally separate to what my, financial growth budget is. So a lot of people have a hard time sort of associating the two together. I also get that. But this is where I want to explain to you that it is associated, right? Just because you made 100 grand last year doesn't mean you're ahead of the game if you're going to lose it in 2 weeks or less. The other thing that we have from last year, well, we know supply chains have finally now improved. Supply chains were awful during COVID. I benefited slightly. I sold my house, and I was like, who cares? It's just a house. I was lucky that my house was also in the newspaper, and then they're like, oh, this is what you find, a 4-bedroom home in Alta Vista. So that helped me sell my house really easily, so thank you. And then I decided I don't want a house. So I traveled for about 1.5 years. It was pretty awesome because I can work from anywhere. But then my mortgage agent called me, and I was in Ireland, and he was like, are you ever going to buy a house again? And I was like, maybe. He's like, well, you better buy it before July 1st because this is when the interest rates were going to go up. And I was like, okay, fine. I had briefly seen one previous to leaving for Europe. So I just went ahead and asked my agent, and I said, yeah, sure, let's go buy that last one that I saw. It really didn't faze me because to me it's just a house. It's not the end of the world. And luckily I have my dad, right? So if I was buying this house, which in my view was a shitbox, I basically had to turn to dad and be like, can we renovate? And being father's daughter, of course, he's never going to say no, right? So 4 months later, I have a house, but the pain of all of these material and all this stuff was just insane. So, I felt it as much as I know that you felt it, but now we're sort of getting a little bit more leveled, When a 2x4 was like $12 during just after COVID, well, now it's gone back down to like $4 or $5, which is a little bit more reasonable. So I decided not to do a deck. We're going to do full grass because it was just too expensive, right? So the other thing, though, that we realized is wage costs have increased. Now, if you have not increased your wages for your employees, it's not the end of the world, but how are you going to keep them? Because as soon as that person leaves and goes to another company, if they're a good employee, they're going to be snatched up very, very easily. I can absolutely say that. I only do recruiting for companies that I do HR for, also because there's laws related to recruiting. But Ottawa's a small town. When someone gets fired from one construction company, it's very easy to find out because they're applying somewhere else. This doesn't have to be confidential. I have people call me frequently because they see me on LinkedIn, that they're looking for a job and they've seen something posted. Sometimes all I do is have a quick conversation with them, but then all of a sudden everyone knows that they're applying. Ottawa is a small town, so we know that. But that's also part of what I'm saying is when you look at your wage budget, you have to find a way to keep the employees that you currently have. So if you haven't looked at increasing the current employees' wages, but at least 2 to 3%, you're going to have a hard time keeping them. Now, I understand, again, that employees in construction like construction, and they stay with you because they like you. But there's no saying that they're going to jump ship if they can make another 20 grand by the end of the year somewhere else. Because if you hire someone to come from the outside, to come to your company, you're going to pay them 4 to 6% more than what that current person is actually making. So does anyone know how much it costs you to recruit, go through the resumes, actually hire someone and train them? How much does it cost you as a company? Anyone? Any idea? I have chocolates. I'll bribe you. Yeah.
We've done some studies based on the position. It's anywhere between a 12 and a 21% fringe.
Yeah, that's awesome. Would you like a chocolate?
Yes, always.
So, on average, it's $7,000 to $10,000 a person that you spend just to hire one person. And that's not you going through a recruiter. That's you doing it yourself, right? So when you post the job on Indeed, or LinkedIn or Workopolis or whatever one of these sites, even if you post it on your own site, you have to pay yourself to go through all the resumes. Then you actually have to do pre-screenings. If you do pre-screenings, then you have to do an interview, and then you have to hire them, then you have to onboard them. All of that is encompassed in that $7,000 to $10,000. So when you think about that, is it not worth giving a loyal employee who wants to stay that $7,000 or $10,000? I mean, even just meet them halfway and give them $5,000, you know? And then if they decide to stay longer, give them an extra $5,000 bonus the year after. But these are things that you should really think of as a management team, how you want to maneuver your labor budget. And then lastly, of course, your overall business costs have gone up. So labor, when you post a job now, do you find that you're getting a lot more resumes than you were 2 years ago? At the back, no?
I think it's opening up. Yeah.
It's opening up? Anyone else? I've been posting for laborers, construction managers, project managers, supervisors, drivers, mechanics, and I'm now getting like 200 resumes. Now, about a year and a half ago when I spoke here last year, so even maybe 4 or 5 months previously, it was really drastic. It was like maybe 20, 30 resumes. Now, the challenge, though, that we're getting a lot more resumes is they're not always qualified, right? So you're getting an abundance, but it's not really what you need. This is another part of that $7,000 to $10,000 you're spending, because you have to go through these resumes to see. One of the big things, though, is I really invite you, you have to think about opening your eyes to what type of person you want in your business. This is one of the hardest things I find in construction, is a lot of people that I work with, such as yourselves, have like an image of what type of person they're looking for. And if they don't find their image, they're like, fuck that, I'll wait. Well, sometimes you're waiting for like a year because you haven't found the person that you really want, right? And if we continue to be stubborn in our field, I think we're gonna have a hard time. And I'll show you why. So changes in labor, since 2019, we've only have an increase of 14% of people 24 or younger that are considering construction as a job. That's not a lot. That's really low. And then out of that 14%, 27% of them are women. So that's great. Woohoo! Yay for women. You know, we have a little bit more that are interested. Actually, one of the great things we dive to at OCA is we have women in construction now. You know, we're also looking this at other places to have women in construction. So we have to start promoting these things. The challenge, though, is when we, again, 14% of people think that our field is something they can see for their career. Like, does people forget that you can make $100,000 in construction very easily? If you want to, you absolutely can. You can make a really good living in construction. But we need all of you to be ambassadors of not just your own company. You need to be ambassadors of the brand. You need to speak to people. You need to promote people. You need to let them know that there is an opportunity and a career in this field. Because if we don't do this, we're going to run really short. And I have some other statistics here to show you. So by 2033, 19% of the construction workforce will retire. That's about 90,000 jobs. Now, this is all of Canada. If you have a staff, though, of 75 people, that's 14 of your people that's going to retire. That's a lot. That's going to hurt your business, right? Now, by 2033, that also means we have to hire 142,000 people in construction in Canada. Sure, that's like 9 years away, right? But most of us are not having as many kids as we used to. You know, I don't have any, so I'm one of those examples that like I did not procreate, so I'm not helping society. You know, I'm helping myself, but I'm cool with that. But at the same time, we have to think about this, right? People are not having as many children as they used to, so they're not bringing as many people into our communities to think about future work. So this is for Ottawa. So as you all know, our major projects, hospitals, bridges, obviously the O train. Now, by 2028, our residential construction is going to have a growth of 10%, and by 2033, it's going to grow up by 20%. Our non-residential will see a growth of 5% by 2028, and our ICI will have a growth of 14%. So, because here in Ottawa, we're going to have at least 13,000 people that are going to retire, we're going to need 15,000 workers between 2028 to 2033. So what are we going to do as a team, technically, because that's really what we are, what are we going to do to find those 15,000 workers? We have to branch out. We can't just post on our websites anymore. If you post on your website, unless a company knows specifically who you are or they want to work specifically for you, they're not going to browse your website. This is not bedtime social media material, you know? This is really like, oh, I want to go work for Cooper Rentals because I know someone, you know? Outside of that, they're not going to find you. So you have to find them. You have to sell yourself to applicants, which is very different because, again, long time ago, a lot of our families, our parents started our companies or our grandparents, and we've taken over, etc. And people just came to us. That was very normal, but this is not who the new generation is. And as much as we don't want to believe it, I promise you, because I also teach at Algonquin College, so I see it on a day-to-day basis. No offense to anyone under the age of 30, but a lot of people feel that I am God, you come to me. You know, when I have a job, I can be on my cell phone. I can go and take 20 breaks if I want to. You should be happy that I showed up to work, right? And I'm not trying to be offensive or anything, but that is literally what is happening. So what are we going to do about it? So these are the top positions according to BuildForce. So this is where I got a lot of the data. They have awesome statistics if ever you're interested. But these are the top positions that are the hardest to fill. Hardest to fill from now to 2028. I can absolutely attest to the top one, project manager, construction manager. Holy shit, I've had so many different companies that I work with that have found someone, and then within 4 or 5 months, they're like, this guy sucks. You know, I need him out. Well, now you're gonna spend $10,000, $15,000 just to terminate them, even though you already spent $7 to $10 to hire them. So on top of the salary that they got, you've also now wasted about 30 grand because you didn't find the right fit. So I understand that it's important to wait until you find the right fit, but are you willing to wait a year? Which most of us can't do that, right? Hence why you need to sort of put yourself out there. So what can you do? Show of hands, who has social media account? Okay, what social media accounts do you have? Just shout them out. Instagram, Facebook? TikTok. Ooh, who said TikTok? Oh, what are you doing, Juliet, down there? You get engagement. Okay. Who else? Who else has, now as a company, do you have a company social media account? Okay. Which ones are they? Instagram? TikTok? LinkedIn? Okay, I'm giving you C. You get C. You're going to participate here. Okay, and who has LinkedIn? All right, I'm going back here, sorry. Can you pass that to her? Thanks, okay. So, when you are on these social media sites, have you ever thought about who is paying attention to those sites? What type of person is going on to your company social media? Have you actually ever sat down? You have?
Yes.
Okay, what have you thought about?
The actual age,
Yes.
the gender.
Yep.
So we recognize that this is a way, we have a website.
Yep.
We have a careers page that we've posted and we've improved over
should-
the years.
Yep.
But we totally recognize that social media is a way to access
Yeah.
a younger population. Like you said, it's bedtime scrolling.
Yeah.
So we see the value in potentially in investing in the social presence for
Yep.
that reason.
Yep.
So geographic location, gender. age.
Perfect. Okay. Can you also just lift up your little person? So her person says E for engaged, right? When you have a social media account, a business social media account, you need someone to engage on that social media account. If you only post once a month, that is not bloody engagement. That is, I have to do this just because my boss told me to, or I forgot to do this, or it was someone's birthday. Engagement is actually posting at least every single week. If you want to find people, they need to know where you are. Are you at Tim Hortons celebrating someone's birthday? Are you having a party? Are you giving someone a 5-year award? You need to be engaged on your social media accounts. Now, generally, people between the ages of 20 to 35, they're on social media because of self-esteem, right? Self-gratification. This is what's happening. We can't fault anyone for that. This is how they've grown up. So it's up to us to adapt to this situation. If you decide not to, that's fine. That's your choice, of course. But you're going to have a hard time finding people in the next 10 years. Now, of course, people in my age group, 36 to 49, we use social media because, it's nice to stay in contact, whatever, but we also see there's a purpose to it. This is generally the people that I see also on LinkedIn that are active. They see that there's a reason to have connections with people. Like, I've actually had the opportunity to meet people because, I saw you on LinkedIn. You're the girl I saw. Oh, hi, nice to meet you, And I've never met them before, but we've chatted over LinkedIn, right? So you know that there's a reason to have social media because it helps you. So who has C? C connection, exactly. Having a connection is important. Even Derek here from Cooper Rentals, we met through LinkedIn, and now we're doing work together, right? So little tiny things like this matter. But you have to pay attention to who that audience is. And then, of course, people 50 and over, they do it because it's my family, it's my grandkids, or I like to see what people are doing, or I'm, potentially going to the retiring age, so I want to see what's life out there, or I want to do research, etc. But we really, again, have to pay attention to who you're seeking. Now, regardless of me being in HR and regardless of this being an HR session, when you want to hire someone, you know what you're looking for. You know race, you know religion, you know education, you know age, and I know you're never going to tell me, nor should you, but you know exactly what you're looking for, right? So this is going to help you. Look for this type of person in social media. Look for the fit of that applicant of what you're looking for. Start messaging them. This is what I do now when one of my clients is looking for someone, I go on to their actual site and I say, hey, I see that you work at so-and-so. Are you happy? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? And they're like, oh, you're a dirty cockroach headhunter. Actually, no, I'm not. Thank you very much. I'm just in HR and I just want to say hi, Because it's true, because you never know, where's my C? Connection, right? You never know the connection that you're going to meet. I met someone for coffee 2 years later who said, I remember you and I want to look for a job now. Oh, okay. I'm not actually a recruiter. I only do recruiting for the companies that I work with, right? But I was able to put him in contact with someone else just because of a connection that we had made. But I'm the one that had reached out because I was looking for a client 2 years previously. But that connection made a huge difference. So your brand. Do your employees know your brand? Do they know, do you have a company logo? Do you have values? Did you put that up on the wall somewhere? But do we actually talk about it on a consistent basis? The one thing I can always recommend from HR, if you have a company brand, something like a value system that you want to follow, you have to do this every single day. It should be in your policies. It should be in your processes. It should be, you talk about it at your company events. When you recognize someone, thank you so much for demonstrating care because of X, Y, Z, if care is one of your actual values. It has to be in your brand consistently because all of your employees are your brand ambassador. When there's someone who is not representing your brand well, fire, fire, fire. Get rid of them. Go the path and get rid of them because they can also detriment your brand very, very quickly. It takes 10 years to make your brand. It takes 2 seconds to kill it, right? Specifically, like we said earlier, we live in a small town. So one person gets terminated for something and all they do is start bashing about where they used to work. But if you truly know that brand and you truly know that other company, you're going to know that employee is just disgruntled, which is fine. But if people don't know your brand and they don't know who you are, they're going to believe that employee instead. Hence why you need to promote your brand and talk about what your brand is. The other reason to have social media, where's my loyalty? L, there we go, awesome. When you post things on social media, it's not just now about your lunches, your awards. The whole point of doing this is to drive people to your website. You're trying to build loyalty. You're trying to show that you've had people that have been around with you for 20 years. Or if you're a part of our team, this is what we're going to do for you. This is another reason why you want to be very active on social media. This is what's important to people. I interview people under the age of 30, and a question they ask me is, well, what's the company's social responsibility? And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, do you even know what that means? You know? And I didn't want to insult the person, but it was like, they're like, well, do they recycle? And I was like, this is what you're asking me during an interview. Do they recycle? But they were really, in my personal view, non-trivial things here that were important to them. This is why we have to branch out and think. And remember, this was a construction interview. This is not like a cosmetics or retail. This was someone in construction in a mid-level position, right? They wanted to know what the company does for the community. They wanted to know how they help out. What type of charities are they involved in? And I was like, oh shit. So like as I'm doing the interview, I'm like on their website being like, oh, they do this, they do this. Yeah, I got this. I didn't prepare for that, obviously. Now I do, and it's been asked more than once. But this is something that's important to people because they need to have, where's my C? Connection, right? They need to feel a connection to the brand, because a connection to the brand makes them feel, my E, engaged. So it's 3 easy words, but we have to think of it differently. It's just not something anymore in the Webster's dictionary. This is how you're going to drive traffic. This is how you're going to attract people. You have to be seen so that people can find you. If you're not out there, they're not going to know about you. And maybe you'll be lucky, right? And I'm very happy for you if you are. If you can still find people through word of mouth, that's awesome. Continue, because when that dries out, it's going to be really hard, right? So if you've got a good thing going, you don't necessarily need to change it. But the purpose of sharing this with you today is to invite you to think differently, because it may not work all the time. So the other part of what you can do, business-wise, who goes to schools, events, things at Algonquin, things at high schools? Are you in people's newsletters? Do you sponsor events? Do you have someone at your company that can be a rep for school? Normally, that would be someone a little bit younger, that you work with, but that could be the person who goes to colleges, who goes and speaks to high schools, who asks, calls around to the high schools and says, hey, I know you guys have a newsletter on Career Day. Can we be in there? But you want someone who's going to feel comfortable. No offense, you don't want someone to go in with gray hair, right? Because to someone who is 16, 15, they're going to be like, I don't want to be you, They can't think that far, So you need someone who's going to wear, fun clothing, who's going to look really cool, that people are going to think, oh yeah, okay, I do want to be you, right? Luckily in construction, we can be very straightforward. So also, like I said, if no one knows your business, then obviously that's going to be, hard for people to find you. All right, then what else you can do? Please be transparent. My goodness, be transparent. I've seen so many job postings where you're still not telling people what the salary range is. Why are you hiding it? Like, why are you wasting people's time? There's actually a law that's going to come in. It hasn't passed yet. It's supposed to be sometime this summer, that it's going to be a requirement for you to have a range in Ontario on all of your job postings. So if you're doing hourly, you're going to have to say 20 to 25. If you're doing salary, you're going to have to say 60 to 75. But be transparent about everything that you offer. If you're just posting the nonsense bullshit that's on your website, that this is our company and this is how we were founded, no one reads that. They absolutely don't. They always go to what's in it for me, right? I'm going to share this information. I assume you know, but when someone posts, like say if you post for a job on Indeed, most people never look at your actual job posting. What happens is if they have their resume already preset on Indeed, it just gets sent to them right away and says, Bob Mechanics is hiring. Do you want to apply? There's a thumbs up, click yes. Thumbs down, click no. That's it. That's all they have to do to apply for your job. So of course they're not reading your whole job posting. I also can't tell you how many times I've interviewed someone and they're like, can you please tell me where this job is located? And I'm like, oh, you little bitch. Because then I know they're wasting my time, right? And I'm like, it was in the job posting. And then slowly they're in the no pile. If you can't take 2 minutes of time to prepare for my interview, I am not wasting my time with you, right? But again, we know that these things happen. So because they happen, we have to find ways to navigate around that. One of the ways I find is when I reach out to people. If you go through a Tim Hortons and that person provides you great customer service, then drop your business card. Hey, next time if you're ever interested, I have a customer service role coming up, at my front desk if you're interested. This is how you have to think about recruiting now. It's not necessarily people coming to you, you have to go to them. Now, the other point is most of you, I think, would have, but do you have a referral program in your company? Show of hands. Okay, not as many as I would think, actually. Even if you offer your current employees $250, $300, something, or a gift card, because if you offer them money, it's supposed to be taxed, blah, 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 whatever. So if we want to follow the law, which we don't always do, give them a gift card, but it has to be a gift card to a specific location. Don't give them a Visa card. Visa card is actually money. This is just my HR brain giving you some recommendations here. But if you want to truly give them a gift card as some sort of referral. But this helps. Referrals do help. Now, the only thing I do suggest, though, is be careful about family, friends, cousins, brothers, boyfriend, girlfriend, twice removed, right? Because that tends to be very nasty in HR. However, referrals do help because they know you. They clearly like you if they're trying to find a referral. So they're going to be a very good brand ambassador for you. But if you don't post that you have a referral program in your company, how do people know? That's the whole part again about being transparent. So although we're talking about engagement, connection, and loyalty to find applicants, you have to do the same for your internal people. Because clearly those people have spent a lot of time with you. And if they're going to devote time, 5, 10 years, then you have to find ways to obviously improve to be able to keep them there. Did you know, or let me ask you, do you know how many years now is the most common thing, how long someone will stay in a job, for how many years? Like they think it's normal. Okay, you say 2? 2? Anyone else? 3? 1.5. So if we're 2, we're lucky. This is so normal when I speak to applicants. They feel that going from one company to the other is moving up the ladder. They feel like that's experience. I'm like, what the shit can you do at a company in a year and a half? You barely know everyone who works there. You barely know how to do your job, right? But this is the norm. So if you're going to invest $7,000 to $10,000 to hire someone, you want to try to keep them for longer than 2 years. But the only way you can do that, where's my L? Yay! Loyalty. You need to look at your programs to increase the loyalty that you have in your business. What do you do for your staff? Do you have service awards? Do you have engagement? Do you have flex days? Ooh, anyone I talk to in construction, they hate that word. No, we're not doing that, But if you have flex days, you can create blockout periods for those flex days. You can say, not during the summer because it's our busiest time, right? But give people maybe 2 to 3 days a year that they can use when their dog is sick, or when their dog ate their homework, whatever excuse it is that they want to tell you. But just having that gives people some sort of feeling that, you're engaging with them and you have some sort of connection. And because it's not required by law, again, it's up to you to set the parameters for those flex days. Just put it in your employee handbook and say flex days are available for these types of reasons, only pre-approved by manager, it's not for sick, whatever, etc., and can only be taken between this season to this season. But that also just shows that you trust people. Trust is also loyalty. Most people are not going to wake up in the morning and be like, what can I do to piss off my manager? That's not normally what people do. However, we all have 10% of people that drive you up the wall. No doubt. That is normal. That's usually why you have HR or why you have a lawyer, etc. But make sure that you're not driving engagement or programs in your business because of those 10%, right? You have to always focus on the 90% of people that are fabulous. That's how you should drive your company. That's how you should make your policies and processes. That's how you should have your reward programs, etc. It's hard, though, for us to sort of decipher that. A lot of times, the 10% stick in our brain, like right here, and we can't get it out. A lot of times, we lose sleep because of those 10%. But really, that 10%, you should just do what you need to do. Write them up, do something, or fire them so that you can get them out of your brain. Because the 90% of the people are the ones that deserve your attention and they deserve your energy. So this is the other part that I find interesting. Naturally, in Canada, our population is growing extremely slow. Just like we said, we're not procreating as much as we used to. But the one thing that we are going to grow up until 2033 is immigration. Who, by show of hands, has an immigration program at their company? 2 people. We have like almost 80 people in the room. So that's a 0.0000 something percent. Right? Math is not my forte. But that is really, really low. Now again, I know that a lot of times I hear these comments on a consistent basis. Well, if I hire someone from another country, as their first job, I can't understand them, or their qualifications haven't been, really set over to Canada yet. They have a hard time talking to our vendors, etc. They don't know how to work with us. They don't know our city. Like, I hear these comments all the time. And they come from anyone that could be in this room. It's like a one-on-one conversation. I'm not saying no one wants to be perceived as an asshole. I'm definitely not saying that. This is just reality, right? Because remember, we all have that image of the person of who we're trying to hire. But if we don't branch out and think about who could be our next applicant, you're not necessarily going to find who you want. We have a little bit of recycling. Someone leaves one company, goes to another. Someone leaves one company, goes to another. And they're good employees. So that's good. We do have some recycling in the Ottawa market. But generally, we do have to look at who we can actually attract from coming in. So either new entry, new families, or a lot of times they have all the education and experience that we need. We're just nervous to sort of explore that because we've never done that before. Or it's a little bit more work, right? So a lot of times if you do want to hire someone, you may end up having to be their quote-unquote sponsor. That also means you have to do a labor market impact assessment, an LMIA. Does anyone know what that is? One person, two people, right? Exactly. So I understand when I'm sharing this that it could make you feel nervous because it's territory you've never been in, right? And then, yes, it is more work. I totally get it. Doing an LMIA is a little bit more work. But once you've done one, it's just like anything. It's riding a bicycle. You know the process. It's a lot easier. But this is going to be the way of the future. Like we see, I don't know if you can see the graph because it's sort of orange, but the burgundy is literally how we're going to increase in our population. The burgundy is all immigration. The little tiny orange at the bottom is anyone else here making babies. So it's not high. It's not very high. So for us to be able to continue to be able to service our market, we have to think differently and think, how are we going to recruit? We have amazing people coming into the country, but you need to put yourself out there and start looking for them and recruiting them and have a program for them. Maybe one of the things that you also introduce is you have some sort of educational fund. Maybe you can donate $500 a year if you're worried about, someone's English language, so that they can go and improve their English language. Construction is all about swearing anyway, so I don't really know why it matters. However, I can appreciate when people say, well, it's hard to understand when it's someone's first job. I get that. I was married to an immigrant, and he was Greek. So I spoke half Greek, half English, half French. So I totally understand, right? But the thing, again, as I'm saying, is look at the programs that you have and look at what you're going to do for the next 10 years. If you want to continue growing your company, you need to find people to help you grow for your company. In order for you to find people, you're going to be competing against everyone here in this room, which means poaching. Well, if you go ahead and poach someone from another company, you're going to be really breaching those ties with that company. Yeah. Thank you. I asked her to tell me about my time. So, if you don't want to poach because you want to have a good relationship with your fellow company down the road, then you have to look at different ways to actually recruit people.